The most interesting guests. The coolest conversations. Keep watching episodes of the Grizzly Podcast, hosted by Irvin Scott. Follow the Grizzly Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and many more apps to have our episodes delivered right to your iPhone, Android, or any other device whenever they're released. Can't get enough of the Grizzly Podcast? Stay up to date with all our latest news, events, and behind-the-scenes footage by visiting grizzlypodcast.com.
So what does it mean to be on your Grizzly? It means hard work, dedication, and it means progress beyond your Grizzly. Hard work, dedication, and progress.
I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. And if you're busy making moves, say it with me. I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. And if you're busy making moves, say it with me.
Coming to you from the City of Angels, this is the Grizzly Podcast, hosted by Irvin Scott.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Grizzly Podcast. I am your host, Irvin Scott, and today I am joined by two very special guests. They are both actors, best known for their work on the Nickelodeon show The Brothers Garcia, as well as The Garcias, which recently aired on HBO Max. Ladies and gentlemen, my guests, Bobby Gonzalez and Jeffrey Lycon.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to the Grizzly Podcast, man. Definitely appreciate you guys coming on the show. I grew up watching The Brothers Garcia as a kid. I want to say The Brothers Garcia was like my Keenan and Kel. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
That's
Thank
high
you for
praise.
that.
Yeah,
for real.
I mean it's my favorite thing to hear that people loved and enjoyed the original show. Whenever I see it, whether it be online or talking to somebody, it never fails to put a smile on my face.
This show was so important, not just for Nickelodeon, but I think for the culture. And what I mean by the culture is that, there's not a lot of shows that have actually represented us Latinos. Me being Latino, man, I think I can relate to, the people on that show. So I definitely want to get into all that today. But before I do want to say that, this is the Grizzly Podcast. So what that means is that, this show is all about highlighting folks such as yourselves who are constantly grinding, constantly hustling, just basically doing your best to work towards your dreams or goals while also motivating others to stay on their grind as well. Hence the term Grizzly, which is also being on your grind. So this is the Grizzly Podcast. So thank you guys again so much for joining me on the show. With that being said, we've got a lot to talk about. I got to take him back, man. So for our listeners and viewers that may not be familiar with how your careers got started, let's take them back. Let us know about how your journey in this industry got started. So, Bobby, I'll start with you, man. What made you want to pursue a career in acting?
Oh man, yeah, I always feel like I hear actors say something really profound when it comes to this, and my parents were always on the grind. They were working really hard when I was a kid, so I was usually with my aunt or my grandma, and they didn't really know what to do with me, so they just stuck me in front of the TV. And I would just watch shows and watch movies, and my parents would then come home, and then I'd act them out, and put on little plays for them, and that made me. Once I kind of realized, I'm like, oh, this is a job. People do this. You don't just have to be a movie star. I begged my mom to put me in acting classes, and she decided to. She thought it was just like a phase I was going to go through. Went to this acting school where she had to tell the teacher. Because I was too young for it. And he was like, just let him stay for one day. Just tell him to come back when he's older. And I went through the class and my mom's like, all right, did you let him down easy? And
Yeah.
he was like, oh no, just bring him back next week. Yeah, no, I want to work with him. And that just went on, and he insisted to my mother that I get an agent. And then I went out, got an agent. I started doing commercials and started booking them. My mom started to realize maybe it's not a phase when I was making money. And then I had a manager that suggested I go out to Los Angeles for pilot season, which was kind of our family didn't have a lot of money. So it was kind of a big investment for my mom to just leave her job and then pick up and go to, California for a period of time while my dad was, home alone. But they did it. And I was very lucky that one of the things that I auditioned for was the Brothers Garcia. And it worked out. And once that happened, I think, one, my mother actually really was taking me seriously when it came to the acting thing. And it just kind of like sent me down the path. And I was really lucky that it was this show. One, because I was able as a Latino kid to have a starring role where I wasn't, on drugs or something, or murdering somebody or whatever. But yeah, everyone kept telling me how important the show was, and I kind of didn't realize it was the case until after it had started airing. And I would have people come up to me and was like, "Oh, it's so great to see somebody that looks like me on television, and just like you're just a normal family." And I was like, "Oh, wow, this actually means something to people." And I think that's just carried me through with everything that I tried to do. Moved to New York after the show was over, did a bunch of theater, did a bunch of theater training, stand up, just all the New York things, the New York stereotypes, all the stuff you go there for. And then one day I just got a call from Jeff Valdez, our executive producer, and said, "Hey, so we're thinking about doing the Brothers Garcia again. Are you in?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, no, that sounds great. I would love to have a steady job that pays well. And we're filming in Mexico. Yeah, no, 100%." And so yeah, we went down, we shot it. I love what we did down there, and yeah, it was beautiful to reconnect with this idiot. I am pointing at Jeffrey. This beautiful idiot. Look at that beard. I wish people could see that beard and hair he's got going on right now. What a combo!
Not good. It's not good.
No, don't talk to yourself like that. But no, we had a lot of fun. I loved all the new castmates we had. Nitzia Chama was a wonderful wife. Maeve Garay, who played my daughter. We had Trinity Bliss. We had Ava Severy. We had Oliver.
Jeffrey, same question. How did you get started in acting?
Yeah, my family, we grew up in East LA. And my sisters, I have 4 sisters, 3 of them older, 1 of them younger. And they, in the middle school that they were going to, they had a talent show, and someone approached my mom after the talent show and basically said, would you like to get them interested like in the entertainment industry and maybe going on auditions and stuff like that. Cut to, maybe 3 or 4 years later, they're doing like, McDonald's commercials, and, one of my sisters did a Twilight Zone episode. One of my sisters did a music video with Menudo, which is obviously Ricky Martin, you know what I mean? Like, and I got to see videos of these, performances of my sisters, like playing these roles, playing these characters, like line basically like on the screen, but for a good cause, you know what I mean? And at the ripe age of 5, I was watching some of those commercials because my mom would play them for me all the time. And I asked her, would it be possible for me to do something like that? And that's kind of all it took for her to hear. She wasn't going to put me in it if I didn't express the passion or the at least the want to do it in the first place, But once she heard that, she was on the ball, She got us hooked up with a manager and an agency shortly thereafter. I ended up like booking like my first job that I ever like went on an audition on, which was a print ad for like Toyota or something. And then like literally like at the age of like 6, I was like flying to Minnesota to do like a movie of the week with like like decent names like at that time, and like it was called Miracle on I-880. So it was about the San Francisco earthquake, the freeways that collapsed on each other, and it was like heavy stuff, you know, like it wasn't this like happy-go-lucky, like, you know, let's smile and eat cereal or eat a Big Mac anymore. Like it was like my leg is getting cut off, like playing like an actual like role of a boy, like a true life story, you know what I mean, of like a boy whose leg had to be amputated in the vehicle from the freeways collapsing on each other, and like how he progressed. And like Ruben Blades played my father. Like it was like it was a really like cool moment for me to understand that like this is real. Like this, you shouldn't take any of this for granted, you know? And you have now a responsibility even to make sure that you're honoring like the true life stories that you are actually portraying, you know? So kind of heavy for a 6-year-old, but yeah, I kind of understood that, and I loved that about it, and I didn't take that lightly, and yeah, from there, I mean, I you know, did a couple other guest spots, a couple other television series. I worked in Florida for a few years on a show called Second Noah, that now we have, you know, humongous stars come from that show, like Cyclops, James Marsden. It's just crazy to think that like I worked with all these people like as a child, you know, and if you stay in that industry, you know what I mean, like long enough, you're going to end up working with amazing people, like regardless, because no one, I've always felt that no one on a set, no one on a TV set, movie set, commercial set, print ad set, like no one ever kind of, at least in my perspective, no one is ever there because they feel like they have to. You know what I mean? Like they feel like, well, there is a better place that I could be, but whatever, I'm here right now. Like it's always felt like we're all here for a reason, and we're here for a purpose. Like let's get this job done. You know what I mean? Like and call me lucky, because I trust me, I've heard, you know, different stories where it might not always be that great, you know what I mean, the experience, but I have literally 99.9% of the time, like always had just great experiences on set. And I don't know if that's me being just delirious to like, you know what I mean, like everything else going on around me, or if it is just genuine, but I've always felt like love like that. And yeah, so cut to, you know, I was about 14. I auditioned for the Brothers Garcia, and we went through what, Bobby, like 7, 8, 9 rounds of auditions
over
right?
the course of several months. And
Right.
I kept having to fly, and I was already in Miami at that. I kept having to fly back to LA for like the next wave of auditions.
Right. So I'm at home chilling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like between every audition, but Bobby's over here flying. And thank God that he did. But yeah, you know, it got down to the nitty gritty, and when we found out that we were the ones selected, like for this job, for this TV show, for these roles, it was really, really, it felt different. It felt special in a much more proud way than I had ever felt before, kind of. I don't know if it was the length of auditions or the just the scenarios that we had gone through. But it was definitely it was foretelling of what was about to happen, and what we were about to, you know, accomplish and culminate within the show, and within our specific, even just genre of the entertainment industry. We set some pretty, you know, cool records. And I think it's something that we can all walk away from just being the utmost proud of, and that lasted for 4 years, you know. So that was my entire high school career. I didn't see many, you know, high school friends during that time, and I missed out on a lot of stuff. I missed out on my prom. I missed out on, you know what I mean, dances. I missed out on, you know, hanging out, whatever it was, you know. And I wouldn't trade a single second of any of it for not being a part of such an incredible experience.
So for our listeners and viewers tuning in right now that may not be familiar with the show, let me give you a little bit more background. The Brothers Garcia was a series created by Jeff Valdez, Mike Cevallos, and Gibby Cevallos. Now, what makes this series special is that it was billed as the first English language sitcom to not only have an all-Latino cast, but also an all-Latino creative team, which consisted of directors, writers, and producers. So this was a very unique thing at the time. And the show aired on Nickelodeon from July 2000 to August 2004. Now, the series revolves around the Garcia family, who are Mexican Americans. And John Leguizamo, who plays Larry as an adult and also happens to be one of the family's sons, narrates the show. Larry, now as an adult, recalls his upbringing in San Antonio, Texas, with his siblings George, Carlos, and Lorena, played by Bobby Gonzalez, Jeffrey Lycon, and Vanessa Pedinsky. And the show does a great job at demonstrating how the family deals with everyday problems such as school, work, growing up, all while living under the same roof. Looking back now, let us know about your fondest memory, man, just being on set.
I'm gonna go back a little further than that because Jeffrey sparked a core memory that I always love remembering, which was in the audition process. It was either the last one or the next or the second to last one. I don't quite remember, but it was when they were kind of like grouping us all up. Like they had all of their different ideas of like who's going to be Carlos, who's going to be George, Larry, you know, and so they kind of just all had us, and they would call in, you know, different. Okay, I want this George, this Lorena, whatever. And I remember when we got in there, and it was what ended up being the final cast with Carlos La Cámara and Ada Maris and Vanessa Patinsky, Alvin Alvarez, Jeffrey Licon, and myself. And I remember like we started doing it, and I went, "Oh, this like it like clicked." I'm like, "Oh, this is it." Like I remember I was like so excited to work on a show, and then when we were doing that, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be working on a good show. Like this has like a different energy to it."
So Bobby and Jeff, what was it like being part of the Brothers Garcia?
I mean, it was crazy for me, specifically in the sense that whereas everybody lived in LA, I lived in Miami, so I was kind of on my own a bit out there. Obviously, I didn't know anybody in Los Angeles, and I was really lucky that Jeffrey kind of took me under his wing. And, you know, whereas I could have done nothing on the weekends, you know, Jeffrey would invite me out, we'd go to dinner or hang out and stuff. And so that was nice because I have an older sister, but I never had an older brother. And so, you know, throughout the filming of the show, Jeffrey became that older brother to me. He hates it. He kind of hates it when I say this. Like he loves it.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I get emotional when you say that. That's all.
I feel like you think like I'm putting a lot of responsibility on you, but like I said, you did a great job. You were a great older brother.
Thank you.
You've continued to be a great older brother throughout the years. It was, yeah. So I think it's kind of like a, I don't know, 20-way tie between all of the episodes that were just the family. Like I loved having, don't get me wrong, like I loved having the guest stars. I loved having, you know, the celebrity guest stars and all that. That was always really fun, like meeting Shaggy or whatever. For people listening to this that maybe of the younger, Shaggy used to be huge. It was a big deal.
It wasn't
mad
me.
Respect to Shaggy. But the episodes where it was just kind of focused on us, and especially when it was like the four of us, like the four kids, and it like that was the whole plot, like these kind of like bottle episodes. I loved those. I can't remember anything specifically. I'm sure if Jeffrey starts talking, I'll remember other like specific episodes and things.
I mean, I like to think about I mean, it was a coming of age time for me, like just in general, like growing of a human being, you know. Um, so there were, in the beginning, of course, it was much more, you know, this is a great time. This is playtime. This is like where we get to do these, you know, awesome scenes and act out these awesome like scripts like with our friends, with our family. You know what I mean? Like there got to a certain point as well where like our writers started to take on a little bit heavier stuff. A friend that at school that had gotten cancer, and you know, Carlos ended up like shaving his head out of like respect like towards her, and because he had felt bad about something that he had, you know, said towards her like earlier. And it was, I mean, just moments like that too. It's like we were tackling like some pretty heavy issues, like I feel like when it came down to it, like towards the end of our run like on Nickelodeon. And I don't know if a lot of other like kids shows were even trying to attempt to go down that road, you know. um and I mean, I just think about also like the moments in our shows where we had wronged one of our brothers or sisters, or sister I should say, and like and we have to come back full circle and like kind of retract what we said, or apologize, or come to grips with it and like man up and take accountability, basically, you know what I mean. And I don't know if I mean, dude, like I still use a lot of those like morals and like just life lessons like in my life today. I, like I said, I have four sisters, so it's kind of the opposite, but like I I'm a better person for the role that I played as Carlos on the Brothers Garcia. And like I stand behind that statement.
Yeah, right
I
on.
agree with you on taking morals from the show and the fact how they have influenced my life. I think the one that didn't was the best way to hide an armadillo body is by putting it in a pizza box. I don't use that one. I don't use that one at all. But the other ones, I definitely do. Yeah, I think as far as the episode, you were talking about the heavier episodes, and I was really lucky in the last episode that we ever shot to work with the late great Ricardo Montalban, who is he was just such an amazing person to have on set because he was so kind of willing to teach. Like he saw that like I got wanted to do better, and he kind of saw that, and so he would work with me. Usually when you go, you rehearse the scene, you go back to your dressing room, you wait for it to be lit, you come back. And I remember with Ricardo, we lit the scene, and he was like, come over here, and we're gonna work through it. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, let's go. And that episode was really beautiful to me because that episode, first of all, he was playing a Cuban immigrant in that episode, and my parents are both Cuban immigrants, so that was pretty big for me. And it was also talking, he was a former musician, and he had to give that up when he came to this country. And as an artist, the idea of having to give it up to like, if somebody was just like, all right, from now on, Bobby, you can't act anymore, you can't do anything creative, you got to do something else. I respect the people that do that, but I do understand how crushing it must be if you have that desire, if you have that urge. And so working through that was really because it also mirrored my father's story. My father was a musician in Cuba. He's got a lot of amazing stories about that. And then when he came to this country, there was just no time for it. He had to get to work. He had to survive. He had to be able to eat. Then he started a family, and so he had to provide for his family. And so my dad never really got to go back to the music, which he loved so much, which is one of the reasons that he really supported me because he was like, my son gets to be creative. So that really touched me. I think about that episode probably more than any other episode, just because that one really did influence my life.
And I'm sure if you asked, all of the cast members, we would all come up with a different episode, but we would all kind of like go towards one specifically, like almost immediately.
the way the show ends, right? You have that last line at the end of each episode, todo para la familia, everything for the family. It was such a memorable line at the end of each episode that, it just made you want to go and like hug somebody, right? Whether it was your family members, your friends, whatever, you just felt good.
The next person you saw.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
So you felt good about watching a show like that. But again, man, kudos to both of you guys for getting the opportunity to be a part of something as major as this. Brothers Garcia will go down in history as, not just like a Latino show, but it's just a show about good values, man. And I definitely think that you guys did do that. You connected with the audience in that way. So I definitely appreciate what you guys did. Now, I do want to talk about your characters because obviously the characters were really important as well to the show. So, Bobby, tell me more about your character on the show. What was it like playing the role of George on the Brothers Garcia?
Yeah, I mean, when I first read the breakdown for George, I was like, oh, I have a good shot at this because it just seems so much like me. Which is, I mean, he's kind of just like a lost teddy bear sometimes. Like, I think that's kind of what it is. I feel like he's really smart when it comes to anything technical, anything technological. He's really good at those kinds of things. He really likes computers and video games and stuff. But when it comes to some of like the social sides of things, he loses his sense of he gets insecure about it. Like, he knows a lot about computer. Anybody asks him about that, he's fine. But anything knowledge-based, he's really good at. But when it comes to interacting with people, he doesn't always know what to say, and he's shy. He makes a lot of jokes. Sometimes those jokes are there because he's uncomfortable. Am I talking about George or myself? I lost the thread.
You
here.
forgot.
It was interesting, though, with George in that he was already pretty close to me. And then as soon as like the writers met me, I think by maybe even just mid-season 1, definitely by season 2, they were just writing me. They were just, they were just taking things I say and then just crossing out Bobby, putting in George. It became so easy to the point where I wasn't even acting. I really was. It just made it so much easier on me. I was just reacting truthfully. Like, I was reacting how George would react because that's how I react. But yeah, George was... He was a goofball. He was very empathetic. He could feel a lot, and also really just wanted to always make everyone happy and make everyone laugh. And then he understood the value in just technology, and he was a nerd. He loved video games. He loved music. I feel like, I don't know, for at least most people I've met in my life can relate to George the most. Just in that sense. I mean, I feel like definitely a lot of people related to Carlos, but Carlos was also really cool. I've never been cool. Jeffrey's a cool guy. Jeffrey, and he might even disagree with it, but I think like cool. You can't be taught cool. You just kind of exist as that. Like when you were born, and it's just like, yep, this one's cool. All right, move on. And so, yeah, he's shaking his head. You can't see it, but he's shaking his head because he disagrees. But yeah, Carlos was the cool one. George was the nerdy one. So I feel like that was like really relatable. I feel like a lot of people kind of growing up have their nerdy hobbies and their nerdy tendencies, and sometimes they get made fun of for it, which I think is unfair. But yeah, that's George. Did I do a good job? I think I did a good job.
Absolutely. And what's interesting about all that is that you're describing the character, right? And I think a lot of people are kind of nerdy in their own way. They love computers, they love video games. I mean, that's the modern thing now. So
George was leading the charge.
I think it's better.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's better. Like that is a more popular thing to be like than ever before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jeffrey, tell me more about your character Carlos on the Brothers Garcia.
I mean, he's the oldest of obviously the 4. And even though we talked about it slightly in the show, the two, Alvin's character Larry and Vanessa's character Lorena were twins at some point. I don't know.
That's no longer canon. That's no longer canon.
That's
not canon anymore.
Obviously, Bobby has like middle child, characteristics. The eldest child like characteristics, I don't feel like were very prominent with Carlos, other than the fact that like at the end of the day, he wouldn't if he really felt like someone was messing with his family, he wouldn't stand for it ever. but would he mess with them nonstop? You know what I mean? He was relentless, but like that never really stopped him from including his brothers or sister, even though she was kind of annoying at the time. But like I honestly feel like I don't want to call him a ditz, but like he just didn't put two and two together very quickly, you know? Like
I think you're looking. I think you're looking for a himbo.
I don't know what that is a new word for me. Oh,
Look it
Bobby,
up. You're gonna love
no. Is that no, I don't like that. Is that bimbo for a boy?
it.
No. Okay. I guess. Yeah, maybe a little
I mean, I
bit.
feel like it's kind of dead on.
Okay, but sure. Okay. Yeah, sure. But it was always genuine though. Like it was never like he was trying to just disregard something, you know what I mean? Or like just shoo someone away like because or I don't in anything that he did. Like he literally had like a genuine heart, a heart of gold, but like he just doesn't know how to execute or say all of his thoughts all of the time, you know? And that's what gets him messed up. And I think that's what gets a lot of people messed up. We we as adults now, like looking back, like yeah, like how would he know how to handle that situation or this situation? Because I'm thinking about it in my time right now, like, and I wouldn't know how to handle that situation, or you know what I mean, or like what to say specifically. So, I mean, I feel like growing up is a constant process till we die, and if we're not constantly growing, then all we're doing is dying. And I'd rather look at it as if still growing up, because I hope to God that's the case. um, because I'm still learning different things. You know what I mean? I'm still trying to understand different, people's, opinions and people's outlooks on situations, and situations that don't necessarily fly under the same like radar as we do on a day-to-day basis, but they still matter. They still matter to, even if it's just one person, it still matters to someone. And we have to respect that. And we have to take that into consideration. And we have to do our best to understand that, and to want to understand that, as opposed to just judge. So as long as we're still questioning, which I feel like Carlos is constantly just questioning his, personal life, his intimate life, his family life. Like, as long as we're still questioning, then that means we're growing.
The Brothers Garcia brought opportunities for well-known stars from that era and beyond to appear on the show. The show featured guest appearances by Cheech Marin, Bow Wow, George Lopez, and Vanessa Hudgens, to name a few. Looking back now, who was your favorite guest star on the show?
Bow Wow was a big deal for me. Like, I only listened to probably like rap and like a couple other like artists at the time. Like, so he was like this up and coming guy, and I was like, he was younger than me, and I remember sitting on the couch just being like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, this is what is going on. Like, this, how does anyone see what's going on? Like, it was that big of a deal to me for some, like, and don't get me wrong, like he's still, an artist and he's still doing great things or whatever, but like making me feel very intense. So that was like, I was like a complete fan at that point. You know what I mean? Also,
he was such a good guy.
No, he was super nice. Yeah, like
he was so nice. Like, even, I mean, he didn't have to be. He could have just come in and done his job, and nobody would have thought anything different. I mean, he didn't have to be as nice as he was. And even after that, whenever we would like see him at an event or something, I remember, I think it was Kids Choice Awards, I went to go say hi to him, and he was surrounded by his security, and I was like, "Yo, Bow Wow!" And I, like, the security guy kind of looked at me, and Bow was like, "No, I know him." And then like came and like like took a picture and stuff like that. And I was like, what a cool dude, man. Like, he doesn't have to be that nice. It's just he's such a good guy.
Even Solange Knowles, like Beyonce's sister, like another example of like just a genuine person that like was like, she was as stoked to like work on our show as we were as stoked to be like, what the heck? Like, you are a musical artist, not to mention the sister of a crazy, ridiculously amazing, out of this world artist. Like,
I mean, one of the
and
hottest
you were
singers at
just
that time, right?
yes, and
oh
you were
03 is
just
when
like,
her
and
career
you were
took
just
off.
talking to us. Yeah, and you're just talking to us like we are normal people. Like, how is that happening? You know?
Her dog broke into my dressing room,
Oh my
and like
God.
she came in after it, and she's like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," and I wanted to be like, "You never have to apologize for anything." But I was like, "No, it's all right, it's okay.
Ever.
It's a cute dog."
But yeah, even to Vanessa Hudgens, like we had her on the show, I think multiple times, right, Bobby? Like it wasn't just once.
She was on there at least two different arcs. In each of those arcs might have been one episode, but I feel like she was in a two-part too. So I think I want to say like
Right on.
3 episodes at least.
She was like super great throughout, you know, all of those working processes. She would bring her mom to the set, her sister to the set. Like we became friends with all of them, you know. I want to even say, do you remember we had Vitamin C? Do you remember who that is?
Yes, Vitamin C,
I
the
remember Vitamin
graduation.
C gave me a kiss.
Dude, she was
Vitamin C gave me a kiss on the
extremely
cheek.
nice. She was extremely nice. Like
She had the graduation song.
Like-
Yeah, that was great.
yes, she did. Yeah, man. And then we had like older, you know, celebs come through. Like,
Yeah.
we had Eric Estrada. Like that. Like
So
that's
funny
super cool too.
story
Like,
about Eric Estrada that I think I'm allowed
Bobby.
to tell. Am I not allowed to tell this story?
I don't know, but go for it.
We can always edit it. It's all good.
I'm gonna tell the story. So Eric Estrada did actually audition to play our father, Ray Garcia, and instead, you know, obviously it went to the very talented Carlos LaCamera. But he Carlos always loved to mess with Sonia. They have a very, with Ada, who plays Sonia. They have a very long history. They've known each other since college.
They were on a show called Nurses together back when they were barely out of college. So
Yeah.
like they've known each other since they were literally like barely like 20 something.
It's so
Sorry,
when
go ahead,
we had
proceed.
Eric Estrada on the show, I think it was that Carlos went up to Ada and was like, "Could have been your husband, but you stuck with me." I think I'm allowed to say that. I think I'm allowed to tell that story.
The truth of the matter is, like, if you're Latin in the industry, like the chances of you working together like for the first time is pretty slim. Like, you know what I mean? Like Ada had played I mean, I talked about that movie about Miracle on I-880 about the freeways collapsing in San Francisco in the 80s, and Ada was my mother in that movie. And now like she played my mother in The Brothers Garcia. And like that's a trip.
Jeff, you had mentioned that you had worked with Ada on some projects in the past. So the fact that you were able to, work with her again, it really feels like a family in a sense at this point then, right? Having worked with her in the past and now getting a chance to connect with her again, you guys are very close. And obviously the entire cast is close because it really shows on screen. So would you guys say that being a part of this show is like getting an opportunity to work with family?
It was genuinely just a blessing, like to walk onto like that set, like every morning, like every single person that you would see, every single, every AD, every gaffer, every light technician, every, camera assistant, like no one ever made, and maybe it was because we were kids, I don't know, but no one ever made you feel like this was a job, it was a full team effort to just keep us on the steady path of like understanding, like we were doing something way better, way greater than just a job, and I feel like that translated especially into the main cast's interactions. Like I said, like working with Ada before, like of course like helps, but Ada's just one of those types of people, not actors, just people that is always going to be welcoming and always going to be inviting, like to any conversation, to any interaction, to any question that you might have, you know what I mean? Like, especially as children, like that's huge. Like you don't want to think that like, oh, well, my TV mom and dad, like, I can't really talk to them like offset, like, cause that's That was never the case. And especially with like us kids, like we would do, our hours of whatever a day, like schoolwork, like together in a room, whether or not we got our schoolwork done, you know what I mean, within that amount of hours is debatable. We were still the four of us like in that room together, like for those hours, you know what I mean? Like we like those are some of the most fun times, you know what I mean? Like Jerry, our teacher, like who knows what she thinks of us, but like those were some of our biggest like bonding moments, you know what I mean? Like, and I
Considering how
love
much I
Jerry,
goofed
like,
around, I don't think her opinion of me is that high. But I'm sure
but
there's still
I'm
love
sure
in her
she
heart
loves
for
you
me. Yeah,
still.
no, for sure.
Yeah, it was the atmosphere, it was the environment, it was the the intentions behind everything that like set the foundation for us to really connect with each other. And and I'd like to believe that that was intentional behind the higher ups or whoever it was, but it worked. And I've always been a firm believer that like if you set your goals strong and high and make them known, and you have to put that work in initially, or else you're gambling at that point.
The cast itself, we did truly feel like a family, but there was a closeness with the entire crew as well. And I feel like if the cast was our family, the crew was like the rest of our community. Everyone always had your back. I mean, I remember specifically there was an episode. I don't remember specifically which one it was, but I had terrible flu. I just had a terrible flu, and I was really difficult to come into work, but I didn't want to call out because I just know that everyone, is kind of like relying on me to be there. Like I can't miss a week of shooting. It's really gonna like mess with everything. And the crew just understood that and was just so supportive and trying to help me. And I remember, like one of the lighting techs came over and just kind of anticipated I was going to need to sneeze, and then just had a Kleenex, and I was like, "Thank you," and then I was able to do what I had to do. And within the cast itself, I mean, I don't think in person I have called Ada or Carlos by their names in like 20 years. I just call them mom and dad. And I think I always will. But yeah, I mean, obviously I already talked about, Jeffrey being an older brother to me, and, Vanessa and Alvin were like a brother and sister. And I spent, again, not knowing anybody in Los Angeles when we were filming the show, I spent a lot of time with the people on set. And it really just helped to foster that even more, so that once the show was over, for years I was still in contact with everyone, and would try to see people if I was in Los Angeles. It was phenomenal that it wasn't fake. We didn't have to fake it. It was so true that it continued beyond the life
Oh
of the
yeah,
show.
the show was over for years, and I mean, we were still hanging out together. It was 20 years before we got back on set together. So for us to not see each other, or at least talk to each other, or hang out, or text each other like within those 20 years would be an absurd like thought to me.
The Brothers Garcia came to an end on August 8, 2004. After the show concluded, we never heard anything about the Brothers Garcia ever again until 2022. So on April 14, 2022, The Garcias premiered on HBO Max, and the series was developed by Jeff Valdez. Upon the announcement, it was reported that the entire cast would be coming back. So to me, that was amazing to see because, I don't think the show would have been as effective, without the original characters. So the fact that you guys got a chance to reprise your roles was amazing to me. Tell me more about what your reaction was like when you first heard about the Garcias returning.
It was 5 or 6 years before we stepped foot in Mexico to start filming that I got a phone call. And it was a very brief phone call. Like, you don't understand. Like, we Bobby and I would talk. Vanessa and I would talk. Alvin and I would talk. You know what I mean? I would see Ada and Carlos every once in a while. Whatever, you know what I mean? But like Jeff Valdez, like you don't talk to as much. You know what I mean? Like, he is a very busy man. He is an executive producer. He has got a lot of things going on. You know what I mean? Like, we are not his only concern. You know what I mean? But when you get a phone call from him, your heart drops, you know? And you almost feel like it's like your dad calling you, but you might be in trouble, but you have no idea what the heck you've done because like you haven't seen him in so long. You know what I mean? Like it's like why I shouldn't be this nervous. I shouldn't be. I just pick it up, and then it finally goes to voicemail, and you're like, God, why didn't I pick it up? You know what I mean? So it was one of those for me, and obviously all the voicemail said was, "Hey Jeffrey, it's Jeff. Call me back." So I was like, okay, that gave me a lot. Thank you, Jeff. Called him back, and he literally was just asking and wanting to know if I would be interested in a reboot of the Brothers Garcia. He didn't know the concept. He didn't know the what the title of the show would be. He didn't know who would be a part of it at that point. You know what I mean? Like he was just getting basically hands up and hands down from like people, you know? And that's all that he wanted to know. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm in. Like whatever you need, you know? And that was like like I said, that was 5 or 6 years before we ever stepped foot in Mexico, you know? So from that point on, like I had always like the level of like anticipation, slight anxiety, but also just like love and like hope, you know what I mean, was like slightly rising from like that day forward, you know? And just like anything in Hollywood, like nothing happens overnight, you know? And he had to jump through a lot of hoops to get even those 10 episodes done. So I respect the man so much, like just for making that happen. Like, first of all, you know what I mean? We can get into like whatever he is still trying to make happen, like later, like, which is just astronomical. But yeah, from that point, when from that phone call on, like I knew at some point it was going to happen. And when this man puts his mind to something, he doesn't stop till he gets it done. You know, I believe that, and that's all I had to go on.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to go ahead and continue to say things that I believe are true, but have no way to verify or corroborate. But to my understanding, I think Jeff was literally trying to get the show going again the moment it was over, and he just spent just years and years and years trying to figure out some way to make it happen. And yeah, it was similar to Jeffrey, just out of the blue one day. I had not heard from Jeff Valdez for years, and I still had his number saved on my phone. And so, I mean, I was just at home in New York, and I think I just gotten back. I think I just gotten back from bombing. I was in a pretty vulnerable place, but I just saw my phone just say Jeff Valdez, and I had that same reaction. I was like, "Oh God, oh God!"
Did you pick up the first time?
I picked up.
Good for you,
must have
man.
gone, and this is the thing, whenever Jeff Valdez calls me, I never answer on the first ring. It takes me a couple to kind of just like ready myself to be like, okay.
Collect your thoughts.
Anything could happen. Literally anything could happen if Jeff Valdez is calling you. It might be the show's coming back. It might be something super mundane. It might just be like, hey, Bobby, you want to watch a football game and get some pizza? And I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, all right, what is he going to have my character do? Like, well, what's the arc? Hey, Bobby, you want to come get some pizza? Okay, yeah. But whatever Jeff Valdez says, pretty much the answer is just yes. And it always has been, pretty much always will be. I'm so grateful to him. And not just the fact that he gave me a shot. He gave me a shot on a show that just completely defined who I wanted to be as an artist and the kinds of projects that I wanted to work on. And I've continued to seek those out in the years since I've become a writer. And I'm really just trying to continue to put out shows that have Latino leads, that portray us in the right way, in the way that we deserve to be portrayed, you know, which is, like, I mean, I love playing a villain and stuff like that, but we don't always have to be the bad guy or the drug dealer or the murderer or whatever. You know, we have room to be heroes. and we have room to just be normal people. And while we've done a little better on the normal people front, I want to see more heroes. You know, that with the MCU, for example, being such a huge thing, I want to see more Latinos just taking on roles like that. And not to say people like Oscar Isaac haven't, but that's just it's one or two, and I want way more. I want us to be pretty equally represented. And so it was the same thing with Jeffrey. It was 5 or 6 years before we ever set foot in Mexico. But I would get calls from him every now and then, and me want to be a writer. I want to be like, okay, so what's the story? Okay, so George has a kid now. He's married. Oh my God. Okay, yeah. And his wife is like Mexican, like from Mexico. And I wanted to get every single little tidbit I possibly could, and I was just so excited with the direction that he was taking things. Now George is rich. That's great. Awesome. Nice to see George got a come up with a beautiful house. Loved all of that. So Carlos is playing second fiddle to George. Yeah, let's go. Let's have that. I want that. I feel like George deserves that. So it was awesome just to. I think what I loved too is, not only was I a part of the show, I really did just enjoy the story of the show. I enjoyed the story of our family when we were in San Antonio, and George. It's kind of weird to put this, but obviously I played George, but I'm also fan of George, and so I was so excited to hear how George's life had gone, how his family's life had gone, and that was so cool to me. I was so happy for George. I feel like that does make sense, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's how I felt.
I might be crazy too, though.
No, and that's great to hear, because I was actually going to ask you guys, were you guys happy with the outcome? Obviously, the Garcia's returning. It's a reboot, it's a sequel series, whatever. Were you guys happy with the outcome of these characters? Where you guys were at this point in your lives as George or as Carlos? You know what I'm saying? So, Bobby, thank you for sharing that info there on how you felt about that character, because, like you said, it was a come up, for your character George. What about you, Jeff? Did you feel like your character also evolved in a sense as well?
Absolutely. I loved it in the sense that he was married with 2 kids. Just to be able to walk into a character who you've played before but has a completely different dynamic, that's huge. For any actor, that's what I mean. That's very enticing. It's very very just exciting. I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and that I could, build off of as far as that love for children goes, you know what I mean? And that part wasn't very hard, but just to have a on-screen wife too. And Elsha Kim did an amazing job, with the role. And just to go back even a little bit, Jeff Valdez also allowed most of us to be in since COVID was kind of still prominent, during the audition process, he allowed us to be in the audition Zoom processes as far as who was going to be our wives and significant others and children even. And who does that? You know what I mean? What executive producer is just going to so you were here, you read with them. What do you think? What? We, as actors, generally our opinion isn't heard. When it comes to that, you know what I mean?
I was not ready for that question at all. Did not expect to be asked that question.
Yeah, so just that is kind of groundbreaking in my opinion. And it was scary, of course, especially the first big table read through that we had in Mexico, and then you meet these kids, man, and it's so hard not to fall in love with them. And they're just, they want to be a part of, they understand the history of the show, and they want to be a part of that as much as you were a part of it back in the day. And how can you not embrace that, And now we're bringing, different cultures and ethnicities into the show. And I think, which are still minorities though. And I think that's such a big deal as well. That not only are the Brothers Garcia not saying yes, we are a Latino based show, we were the first all Latino cast and crew, whatever, that's amazing. now we're even spreading our wings further. You know what I mean? Like, we're embracing like all of these minority communities, and like we want them to be a part of us too. Like that was important to me, and I feel like it was done very gracefully, you know?
So in December 2022, the series was canceled after one season, or after 10 episodes, with the rights reverting to the production studio. Will we get a chance to see the Garcias return to our television screens again in the future?
All right. So what I will say is, I think the first season very much was, even though it is a continuation of these characters, for all intents and purposes, they are new characters in the sense that their lives are so vastly different from before. So this first season was about reintroducing these characters and also introducing the new members of the cast. And so there's a lot of, backstory. Everybody kind of had had to have their moment in order for you to know who these people were. And so it's almost like an origin story for a superhero kind of thing. And then the next films or stories build on that. Now that we do know who these characters are, now we get to mess with the formula. So we know how different characters interact, so then other characters interact with those characters. Maybe power dynamics change. I feel like that's all I can say, but that's something.
And as far as I'm concerned, like, it's no big secret that like we were not picked up by HBO Max. You know what I mean? They've obviously gone through a lot of changes within their, company and their corporation, as far as, even name change. And that's brought on a lot of, problems for a lot of different shows that were once considered HBO and now whatever, you know what I mean? I think we understood that we didn't fall under the umbrella of the HBO Max or whatever you want to call it. Our show really didn't fit well, That's not to say that we don't fit well a million other places. And I think Jeff Valdez understood that, and he accepts that, and he's always kept a completely positive outlook on the fact that like we just didn't have the right home. Like, once we find the right home, then it's go time, And there's no better person that I would want leading that sales pitch than our man, Jeff Valdez. You know what I mean? But all that I do know is it's not going to be domestic as far as where we film. And it's going to be very, very, very exciting.
So just keep an eye out. All right.
As long as we have, everyone's support still. That's all we need is like the OG fans mixed with the new fans. Like, we just need everyone to just still, keep us in their thoughts, and I think we'll be able to make it happen.
Now, Bobby and Jeff, for our listeners and viewers tuning in right now that want to know more about the brothers Garcia or the Garcias in general, or perhaps want to learn more about what's going on in your world, where can they find you? What's the best place for them to reach you on social media?
I believe the handles for the Garcias are the Garcias TV, Instagram, Twitter, and then mine is at Jellicon, JELICON.
Mine is a little bit more obnoxious. It's at Bobster_G. That's BOBBSTER_G. There's a long history there, and I'm not going to defend it. But no, I really do. I love interacting with fans. I get DMs from fans every now and then. Either just telling me how much they love the show, how much they want the show back. I love responding to them. I can't tell them everything, but I can give a little hope for those that want the show back, and I want it back just as much as they do.
We are accessible. You can reach us. You know what I mean? Like, you want to know something, you just let us know, and we're real.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of keeping it real, man, because this is the Grizzly Podcast, I had mentioned to you both earlier that this is a type of show where we try to inspire others to stay on their grind as well. So Bobby and Jeff, if you guys could offer any advice to anybody listening or watching this show right now, for anybody wanting to pursue a goal, what would you say to these people?
What's helped me to keep me focused and to keep me going is just always keep learning. Whatever it is that you're going for, whether it's something in entertainment entertainment or something more technical, just continue to keep learning. Even when you've finished what's considered your education, keep tweaking it. Keep trying to learn new things. Keep taking classes. Keep meeting with other people that share your interests and learn from them. As much as you may know on a topic, there's other people that might be really good at the parts that maybe you didn't understand so well or you didn't study so much, and you can learn from them. And not only does that help you grow, but it also builds a sense of community and a sense of accountability for everyone to kind of keep pursuing whatever it is their life's dream. And that's really helped me.
And for me, I would just say, even if the timing hasn't worked out or something, as of yet, always make the time for your craft and what you want to pursue, because you never know when that opportunity is going to present itself.
Well said. Bobby and Jeff, thank you so much for sharing that wonderful advice with our listeners and viewers. You have no idea, man. This meant a lot to me. Again, just knowing that I grew up watching this show, the fact that it actually brought my family together. I'm so grateful, man. I'm so honored that I got a chance to, speak to both of you and just let you know how I feel. It meant a lot to me, and the show will always hold a special place in my heart, man. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me on the podcast today. You guys are fun people to talk to. I had a blast.
It really was our pleasure. We are so grateful that we were able to even if it had just been one person, if it had just been you that we had impacted, that means then so much to me.
It was worth it.
So similar to you guys, at the end of every episode, I also have a very memorable line that I like to share with my guests. So Bobby, Jeff, with that being said, man, stay on your Grizzly.
We will stay on our Grizzly.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much, man.
Get it pop. Let's get it.
Yo, that's what I'm talking about.
Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to the Grizzly Podcast YouTube channel to access full episodes, video clips, and more on YouTube. The most authentic podcast is online at grizzlypodcast.com and on all major podcast platforms. Guest appearances and real conversations that will push you to hustle. The Grizzly Podcast is now streaming. We've shared success stories from people of all backgrounds and inspired others to pursue their dreams. Relive those moments and stream episodes of the Grizzly Podcast on our website, grizzlypodcast.com, and on all major podcast platforms.
Yo, turn it up.
Hard work, dedication, and progress. Stay on your Grizzly.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out another Grizzly Podcast episode. We'll see you next time.